So anyway, let's jump into the word, man. I have got a great word for you today. Um, I hope I always have a great word for you because I'm going into the scripture and God's leading. But I get to go today, a special day. I get to go to the Waukomis, one of the towns here in our area, one of the churches, or one of the towns that our church has people coming from. We've got a bunch that come from Waukomis, and it's a little town south of Enid. Enid's about 50,000, but then we've got a lot of these little towns right around it that are 1,000 or less. Nah, actually, most of them aren't even 1,000. Most of them are 600, 800, something like that at the biggest. And a lot of them are 3, 4, 500, maybe 200 people in these little communities all the way around. And and in our area, like up in Kansas, they do countywide schools. Some of the other, I'm not sure, up in Colorado and some of these other places, but they still have schools in all these little towns. And in most of them, a few of them will group together. Like there's one school system that has four communities that are all real close. That are all 100, 150 people, and they all work together or go together to that school system. But a lot of them are two of these towns combined and stuff like that. So we have 14 communities that Carrier Church reaches into. People come to our church, and I need to count up the school systems because there's less school systems. There's still probably 8 or so at least, and this is one of the school systems that we have a lot of people coming from, and some of the teenagers. And one asked me to speak at the FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes group today, and so pretty excited about that. It's going to be awesome. So I got up early and began to seek God and pray. I don't want to just pull out something that's slick. I want to be able to speak into their lives. And I was telling Sue, I was thinking about it last night, and I said, I got to seek God and pray because I don't want to go in there. I'm not going to teach, try to impress them with a bunch of deep theology, and I don't want to go in there and I haven't earned the right to really give them advice, even though I'm maybe just being older. You have somewhat of an opportunity or right to do that, but they have to be willing to receive that. And but man, what the Lord gave me, and I want to share it with you as well, from Psalms 105. And I see a bunch of you have come on here. I'm looking there, and I'll say hi in a little bit. But Psalms 105, man, I fell into this. I say fell into this. I stumbled upon this chapter. I've read all through the Psalms, so I've read it before. But coming in here with this this NLT, the New Living Translation. That's why I like to use different translations. A lot of times I've got 3 translations open right here this morning, and a lot of times I'll look at these different ones. But the way it words it caught my attention. It says, give thanks to the Lord in verse 1. Give thanks to the Lord and proclaim his greatness. Let the whole world know what he has done. Now that right there just grabbed hold of me, and sometimes the scripture does that. It is always speaking. I say it ought to always. It always is speaking. Do we have ears to hear? Sometimes things just seem to jump off the page at me, and I hope that you experience scripture like that too. Maybe something will be read and it grabs your heart. If we develop a hearing ear, and I'm not just talking about these ears, I'm talking about a heart to hear, God will speak. He absolutely will. And I just encourage you that I know some of your walk with the Lord has been, a long time. You've lived as a Christian your whole life, but you can live, and I hear some of your testimonies as I get to know you. Some of you have you've been in church, or you've known God, or you've maybe made Jesus Lord as a child, and maybe you just you didn't really ever totally rejected God, but you haven't also maybe grown, and all of a sudden, here you are, raising kids, or here you are at a point in your life where you realize, man, the direction I'm going isn't the direction I want to go anymore. Or you come to that place, you realize, you know what? I got these little lives relying on me. I need to step up my game. I need to be who they need me to be. I talked about this over the last couple of weeks. I mentioned these things about how when we give Jesus Christ lordship of our life, truly not just confess him as Lord and accept him as Lord, but truly begin to make him the priority, everything begins to change in our lives, and it begins to allow us to see our life different. We see the value of our life different. We see that our purpose becomes different. It becomes about someone else. And really that's what happens whenever we get married, when we begin to have children. It all of a sudden our life is not our own anymore. And some people would reject that thought. And in fact, the worldview is it bucks that. It goes against that. And that's part of the devil's plan, because God's plan has us better when we serve others or we minister to others. Now, not everyone is going to have kids. Not everyone's going to get married. Some people remain single their whole life, or maybe they've lost their spouse after marriage and never remarry. That's all okay. I'm not saying you're not complete if you're not. But serving others is in different ways. Man, that's what God designed us to do, and who he designed us to be, is those that serve him and serve others. But what I saw this morning as I began to look at this Psalms 105, and we've gone through this verse before, I think even on this study. I know we have these verses, but I saw something different this morning as I began to look at this. It says, give thanks to the Lord and proclaim his greatness. Let the whole world know. It shows that the focus is on him. Now that's easy to see. But as I begin to look down through these first 6 verses, I begin to see a process of sowing, of giving, of sowing. And here's what I know about God. When we sow, and what we sow, we reap. That's the way God designed us. He designed this earth. He designed the world. His plan and his system is that as we give, we receive. Now, we don't give in order to, that's not our mindset. I'm going to give so I can get it multiplied back. I'm going to focus on the multiplication. Well, don't put your focus on what you get back. But think about a farmer. A farmer doesn't go out to plant, or a cattleman doesn't go out to, if you own cows, mama cows, those of us in the ranching industry, we when we talk about cows, we're not talking about every bovine, Some people from the city, they say, well, there's a cow, and if he's got horns, he's a bull. Some of you'll get that joke, but that's not true, but that's what they think sometimes. But the farmer has a harvest in mind. Everything he's doing, everything he does is with that harvest, that end goal in mind. Now, again, there's a lot of other things that have to be done in order to produce that. For the cow-calf man, person, woman, rancher, they are thinking about that end goal, that end result. Well, I want you to see, as God talks about all the praise and all the things that he's done, there's also the return or the harvest of what's given that brings us into a place of God's presence, God's strength, God's provision, God's blessing. Man, this is rich this morning. Let's read the rest of this. So first of all, it says to give thanks. That's the first thing we give. Give thanks or give praise to God. Let the whole world know. Now, I wrote a word in, and I didn't look at the other translations. I looked at them, but I don't remember if it says it, but it says tell. That's what I wrote beside the second half of verse 1. Tell the whole world. Let them know. See, right? Telling. But that kid brings it into one word. So we give thanks. We tell others. We sing to him. So it comes back to God. And he says we sing others, and here it uses the word tell, at least in the New Living, tell everyone about his wonderful deeds, what he's done. Tell others. So he's giving us something to do. We sow with our words. We put our focus and attention there. We praise and we worship him. That's why we sing at the beginning of the church service. Generally, that's the way you run a church service. You pray, you bring God in, and then you praise and you sing. And we do that to put the focus on God. But there's something else that happens. Verse 3. In the New Living, it says, exult in his holy name. The other translations use the word glory. Glory in his wonderful name. And then it says, rejoice, you who worship the Lord. Now, I pulled out my Greek lexicon, and that is it's a rendering and explanation of the Greek words, and it actually has the word in the Hebrew. This is written in this Old Testament's in Hebrew, New Testament's in Greek, but in these languages, there's a bigger understanding. And what I began to notice was when we glory in his name, we're praising him. And it says, rejoice, you who worship the Lord. But there's something that happens when we put the focus on God. We've sown seed towards God. We're giving towards God. But we reap a harvest of joy and of cheering, being cheered up. That's what that word rejoice means. One way of looking at it means to make glad and to cheer up. Now, I don't know about you, but there's days that there's things that are heavy. There's things that are just they're just hard to watch for me. Yellowstone. I love cowboy stuff. I tried to watch it. The language, I'm around Sale Barn and around working men. Language, that stuff doesn't really bother me, but when it's like in every sentence, like the way it is, I have a hard time with it. So, but here's the harder part for me on Yellowstone. And Kinsey was my youngest daughter, who's in nursing school, living here at the house, or close to us right here. See her all the time now. She was talking about, we tried to watch it. Her and some of her friends, they tried to watch this show, and she said, man, it's just dark. It's just heavy. It's constant conflict. It's constant fighting and bickering, and nobody likes each other. And it's like, it's like constant. And if you get through, that's fine. But we started watching one that last night. We started watching Virgin River. It's a drama thing. It's nice. It hardly any bad stuff in it, except it's just heavy all the time. Somebody's sick and dying. Somebody's in this. It's heavy. I'm like, man, I'm dealing all day with, a lot of days with problems and challenges and prayer requests, and that's all good. God equips us to do that. But it's like, I don't want to sit here and watch a show that's talking about it. I want something that's what praise changes in our life, that's a way for us to sow to him and receive, and this rejoice, as we rejoice, it's as we do it, there's something that we receive back, and it's the cheering up. It's the glory, in the glory of the Lord, in the praising of his name. All of a sudden, this other stuff comes to us. I'm going to tell you, there's a giving demonstrated here that's a principle that's not direct. It's the direct focus is attention to God. The benefit or the harvest of that is for us as believers. All of a sudden, we receive the benefit of hope, of strength, of joy, of a cheerfulness. All of a sudden, the weight is lifted. Why? Because we come into the presence of God. You can't remain in a defeated, hopeless and helpless state of mind if we give God glory. And he continues. He says, search for the Lord and for his strength, continually seek him. Don't just seek him when you need him. Don't just seek him in the morning. Do it in the morning because that'll set your day on, right? But continue throughout the day. Here's what I see is every time the weight comes, the pressure comes, the challenge comes, we give praise. We relate back to that. And all of a sudden, I mean, we realize we just walked through something we shouldn't have been able to get through, or we ought to be just worn out by the end of the day, or dog tired by the end of the day. And maybe you are physically, maybe you are mentally and emotionally because your job demands that. But in the presence of God, all these things we can be rejuvenated. Verse 5 says, remember the wonders he has performed, his miracles, and the rulings he has given. You're the children, you children of his servant Abraham, you descendants of Jacob, you chosen one. Now, Psalms 105 is unique because it is recounts and remembers, and we're not going to go through the rest of it, but them coming out of Egypt and going into the promised land and that whole process. It mentions it in a couple of other Psalms, 78 and the other one's 106 maybe, and but here it's more complete. He's trying to sing about everything good thing that God's done. Sow into God and harvest or reap that other. And I got to wrap this up, but I want to point out these things that show up. Give thanks, tell others, sing to him, and tell everyone. Again, it talks about us telling. Exult or glory, rejoice. You could just use that as a demonstration of that. It says to search for the Lord, and it says remember his wondrous works. Man, I tell you what, I don't know about you, but that ought to change the way you approach this day and every day. I mean, regardless of what your past says, remember who God is and his greatness. Regardless of all we achieve in our life, you could be the most successful person in the world, but without God, it really means nothing. But with God and in God, man, what a blessing, what a cool thing. Well, listen, as I go out today, expect to see a harvest of blessing. But don't expect it if you're not sowing these things. Give these things to God and let him return them to you.